Now, the rest of the story. It was the autumn of the year of 1626 when a politician in the city of Amsterdam wrote the following letter to the Legislative Assembly of the Netherlands. Quote, "High and mighty lords, here arrived yesterday the ship which on the 23rd September sailed from New Netherland. They report that our people are of good cheer and live peaceably. Their wives have also borne children there. They have bought the island of Manhattan, Manhattes, from the savages for the value of 60 guilders, end quote." And that is the earliest known document relating to the local history of Manhattan Island. It also refers to something which one day would be called history's greatest real estate deal, the purchase of the island itself for what amounted to $24 worth of beads and trinkets. But now, wait a minute. That much you learned in grammar school. Now you're going to learn the rest of the story. It was only after the English swiped Manhattan from the Dutch that it came to be known as New York. Prior to then, it was known as New Amsterdam, the governmental seat of the Dutch colony of New Netherland. Peter Minuit was the original Director General of the colony. He made all of the laws. He acted as judge in all legal matters. His authority was unquestionable. It was he acting on behalf of the Dutch West India Company who personally purchased Manhattan from the Canarsie Indians on May 6 of 1626. Now, to put things in perspective, the island is 13.5 miles long, 2.5 miles wide at its widest, approximately 22 square miles of land. And Minuit acquired it at about $1 a square mile. Historians are fond of citing, for the sake of comparison, a real estate transaction which occurred some 3 centuries later, 1 square foot at the corner of Nassau and Wall Street for $622.29. Don't try it on your pocket calculator. It won't even compute the rate of appreciation. There's not enough room for the figures. More than 391 billion, with a B, billion percent. Well, if not fair, Peter Minuit's purchase from the Indians was legal. There was, indeed, an ornate document to seal the deal at the time. In the years since, that transaction has been listed among the shames of the white man. It has been called the Great Manhattan Swindle. Of course, the early European colonists very rarely reimbursed the Indians at all for the lands which they settled. Nonetheless, could $24 seriously be considered reimbursement for such an enormous piece of property? Well, this was the white man's real problem. He never gave the red man enough credit. For the purchasing power of the dollar in 1626 was such that in modern equivalent, Peter Minuit actually paid many thousands of dollars for Manhattan. But one thing more. Peter purchased the island from the Canarsie Indians. The Canarsies didn't live there. The Canarsies were only visiting. Paul Harvey, what are you saying? I'm saying that the Canarsie Indians sold something they never owned in the first place. And after they ripped off the world's smartest real estate dealer, they got in their canoes and returned home to Brooklyn. And now you know the rest of the story.
And now for the rest of the story. Today, Manhattan is the most densely populated and smallest, geographically speaking, of the 5 boroughs of New York City. The 5 boroughs being Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. The 4 boroughs excluding Manhattan are collectively referred to as the outer boroughs. With a land area of just 22.7 square miles, Manhattan has a higher population than the second smallest of the boroughs, the Bronx, but the Bronx has a land area nearly twice its size. According to the 2020 census, Manhattan has a population of just under 1,695,000 residents for that 22.7 square miles. That's about 74,637 people per square mile. Manhattan has the highest density of any county or parish in the United States, as well as the highest density of any individual U.S. city. Manhattan is often described as the financial, media, cultural, and entertainment capital of the world. In 2017, more than 62.8 million tourists visited New York City, and the majority of those undoubtedly visited 3 of the world's 10 most visited tourist attractions, which are all in Manhattan: Times Square, Central Park, and Grand Central Terminal. The skyscraper known as the Empire State Building, which is globally used as a standard of reference to describe the height and length of other structures, is in Manhattan. Manhattan real estate is now among the most expensive in the world. In 2013, the value of Manhattan Island's real estate exceeded $3 trillion. In 2018, residential property in Manhattan was valued at $1,600 per square foot. That comes to $69,696,000 per acre. In 2017, the highest retail rents in the world was on Fifth Avenue in Midtown Manhattan at $3,000 per square foot. How much rent do you pay? In 2022, the average monthly apartment rent in Manhattan was just over $5,000 a month. That's $60,000 a year in rent. Wow. What does the name Manhattan mean? The name derives from the Munsee Lenape term Manhattan. Manna meant gather, at meant bow, and an was used to show that it was a verb. Therefore, the Lenape word meant the place where we get bows, or the place for gathering the wood to make bows. A grove of hickory trees was located at Manhattan's southern end, and hickory is the ideal wood for making bows. Why is it New York instead of New Amsterdam? In 1664, New York and its surrounding area came under the control of the British. King Charles II of England granted this land to his brother, the Duke of York. There was already a York, England, so the area formerly known as New Amsterdam became New York. In the very beginning of Mr. Harvey's broadcast, he told of the 1626 letter written to the legislative body of the Netherlands, which described the purchase of Manhattan. The letter survives and is shown on your screen. 60 guilders. For over a century and a half, historians have argued over the true value of 60 guilders. In 1846, historian John Broadhead used what other modern historians argue was a faulty equation. To convert the value of 60 guilders, Broadhead divided 60 by 2.5 because he thought $1 US was equal to $1 Dutch Rijksdalder, or $1 Dutch imperial dollar, which had the same value as 2.5 guilders. Almost all other modern calculations value 60 guilders much higher than Broadhead's calculation of just $24. They range from $72 to $15,600. In 2020, the Institute for Social History of Amsterdam concluded that 60 guilders in 1626 was valued as $963. In 2014, historians James and Michelle Nevius used the prices of beer and brandy for their calculation because most people used the barter system to acquire goods in those days. They determined that 60 guilders in 1626 had the purchasing power of somewhere between $2,600 and $15,600. Confused yet? So am I. Regardless of the value of Manhattan in 1626, the appreciation of the land has far surpassed what anyone could have imagined at the time. After hearing this, would you like to invest in property in Manhattan? I wonder if they'll accept a check. I'm Brad Dison. Thank you for watching. As Paul Harvey would say, good day.